Hi everyone, welcome to episode 4 of the Knitting Expat Podcast. Welcome back. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for stopping by and checking me out. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. First off, I'd just like to apologise if I sniffle a lot. My allergies have been going crazy this week. What with the sandstorm and everything. I'll get to that in a bit. But first off, just wanted to start. Today's date is the 6th of April, and happy Easter to everyone who celebrates Easter. That was yesterday. And I just wanted to start by saying my name's Mina. You can find me on Instagram as Mina Phillip. You can find me on Ravelry as Mina86, and you come and join our group. There's a group now on Ravelry for the Knitting Expat Podcast, and it's called the Knitting Expat Podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode and all other episodes on the blog, which is www.knittingexpat.wordpress.com, and all of these are linked down below in the description box and on the Rav group page as well. First off, I just wanted to say a couple of thank yous. Thank you to Melinda from Beyond the Woman for the shout out on your past podcast last week. I really appreciate that. I guess I'll get started then. So what's been happening around here this last week? Well, the main thing that happened last week was I went to Dubai for a couple of days towards the end of last week. I went on Tuesday and I got back on Thursday. And the trip was amazing. I got there fine, it was all good, and got to catch up with some friends who I hadn't seen in ages. My friend Steph, she'd had her third baby, and I didn't get to see the baby because she was born a couple of weeks after we moved, so I got to hold the baby for the first time, and she was so sweet. She was just all cuddly, and that really tiny baby stage, and she's only a month old, so all she wants to do is eat, sleep, and cuddle, and it's just the cutest. It's just so good. And I took some really cute pictures of her while I was there. I'm also, I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I'm also, my first love has always been photography. Before I found knitting, photography was my thing since I was about 16. So I've always done Steph's baby photos for her when she had her kids, and family pictures and stuff. So it was fun to get the chance to take pictures of the new baby as well while I was there. And so I'm just checking my notes. I've started using one of my favourite notebooks. I collect notebooks. Whenever I travel, I always end up buying more notebooks from places I've been to, and I got this one last summer in New York. I just loved all the colours. I tell you, I'm just attracted to anything that's bright and colourful. So I'm using this now for my podcast notes. I had the main reason for the trip was I had some bank things I had to sort out in person, and they were just being really unhelpful over the phone, so I just thought, you know what, I'll go there, it's fine. And whilst I was there, I had some work things I had to sort out as well. As it happened, they were like, okay, well, while you're in Dubai, can you do this and this? And I'm like, that's fine. And I don't know if I've explained, I still work part-time for the company I used to work for when we lived in Dubai. When we moved here, it was part of the deal. They didn't want me to go completely, but they wanted to keep me on. So I basically do what they need me to do as and when it comes up, which is quite nice. It suits me fine. And I also got the chance to catch up with all my knitting friends back in Dubai, which was great. I hadn't seen them in ages, and honestly, it felt like I'd never left. It was just kind of like slipping back into the meetups like usual and sort of getting to see everybody, which was so much fun. And it was actually Mel who pointed it out to me. We were having, I think it was just after dinner when we were chatting at a coffee shop. And she said to me, oh, I love how one of your cats made a guest appearance in your last episode. I was just like, what? I don't remember any of my cats being in the last episode. She's like, did you not see? One of them popped up in the background sniffing around your bookcase. I was like, no. because I filmed these on my phone, I got my phone out and had to find out where it happened. And so it happens around 14 minutes, 20 seconds of the last episode. It's hilarious. It's so funny. It's just like, look, Hugo pops up in the background and he's just like sniffing around my bookshelves around this area. It was too funny because I hadn't even noticed. And I think that for me was the funniest thing, that he'd done that and I hadn't even realised after looking back on the video afterwards as well. So yeah, I did a lot of design knitting whilst I was on the way to and from Dubai. I did a lot of knitting on my Stripes Gone Crazy. It was the only like project that you've seen before that I took with me. But it was at a stage where I knew it was going to be quite difficult for plain knitting because I had 4 balls of yarn attached to my sleeve and it was just would have been too messy for a plain. So I cast on the design project I was thinking of doing before leaving. And so I worked on that. That was my plain knitting on the way there. Then on the way back, well, yeah, that was an adventure in itself. If you follow me on Instagram or if you're my friend on Facebook, you'll have heard about it. Anyway, there was a crazy sandstorm. We woke up Thursday morning and I was like, why is everything sepia toned? Because that's literally what it looked like. And you looked out the window, the light was just yellow and everything was just yellow, and you went outside, you could just feel it, you were breathing in sand. It was horrendous. It was so bad. Visibility was terrible. Yeah, it was one of the worst sandstorms I've ever seen. And so people have been asking what life is like living in the Middle East. That's kind of the stuff you got to get used to dealing with. And yeah, but thankfully by around 2 o'clock-ish, the wind picked up and it cleared off, like the sandstorm completely cleared away. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll be fine for my flight back home at 7 p.m, it'll be fine. Yeah, no, not fine. Not even remotely fine. I got to the airport all okay, I checked in all okay, and they were like, okay, well, at the moment your flight's been delayed by 2 hours. So my 7 p.m. flight has currently been delayed till about 9:20. But they're like, we don't know for sure when you'll be going yet, so you've got to keep an eye out on the boards. Okay, fine. So I went into the terminal lounge, and thankfully, one of our credit cards, well, the only credit card that we have, gives us access to a couple of airport lounges. So I got into it's quite a basic one, but it gives you free Wi-Fi and they have some snacks and drinks, so I guess it's better than nothing. So I went into the lounge. Oh my god, it was so busy, and I could barely find a seat. And then once I found a seat, I had to guard it with my life because every time I left to get up and go get something, someone was trying to nab my seat. It was terrible. It was so busy. But anyway, so I found a seat, thankfully. I found somewhere to sit, and obviously because there were so many people there, the Wi-Fi was a bit iffy because there's so many people trying to use the internet. So yeah, I whipped out my knitting, and I actually ended up finishing my design project at the airport before I even got on the flight. It was just, like I said, it was crazy manic. The flight kept getting pushed back further and further. Ironically, the 8 p.m. flight that was scheduled to leave an hour after my one originally was supposed to leave, that one left at 10:45 p.m. It only got delayed by a couple of hours. My flight, which was supposed to have left before that one, got delayed and didn't leave until 3:10 in the morning. Over 8 hours just hanging around an airport. Yeah, I wasn't happy. By the time I got home, it was 5 a.m. Bahrain time, which is 6 a.m. Dubai time. I saw the sun come up. I saw the sun start to come up as I got home. Yeah, it was just a long night. I was supposed to be home for dinner. Instead, I got home to watch the sun come up. Oh, and then I also came home to a house covered in sand, which is even more fun. So yeah, my weekend was a bit of a wash. My Friday, Saturday really wasn't all that productive. I slept half of Friday. I went and slept in the spare room because I didn't want to wake Perry up trying to get into bed, and vice versa. I didn't want him to wake me up getting up in the morning. So I went and slept in the spare room, and I slept until about midday. The rest of the afternoon, I was just all over the place. I would say it kind of felt like having jet lag without the joy of actually having been on a nice holiday to make it worth it. Not that going to Dubai wasn't nice, but the journey back was terrible. And it wasn't really a holiday. I was going to do things and obviously got a chance to catch up with people. But yeah, so Friday was a bit of a wash. I didn't even touch my knitting on Friday. That's how out of it I was. And it's usually a good sign that there's something pretty wrong, because I rarely go a day without knitting something. And then Saturday, I kind of got back to knitting a little bit. It was still quite a rough day. I didn't really feel quite myself on Saturday either. But we made the effort. We actually went out, we did a couple of things. We ran a couple of errands, did some shopping, food shopping and stuff. So kind of started to get back to normal. And then yesterday, Perry had to go to Dubai for work for a couple of days. So he's actually there now, and he'll be back later this evening. Hopefully no sandstorm, and hopefully he'll be fine. But yeah, one good thing came out of my massively delayed flight in Dubai. Whilst I was waiting for my plane, sometime during the night, I got a text message from Perry to say that his sister got engaged. So that was a lot of fun to hear. That was a little bright spot in my evening of mess. Yeah, so the house was covered in sand. The downstairs was worse than upstairs, I have to say. The areas around our front door and back door are the worst, where the doors are obviously not completely weather tight, and the sand just is so fine, it's almost like dust, and it just comes through all the cracks. And so yeah, I spent a good amount of time this weekend cleaning surfaces. But it doesn't really make that much of a difference though, because outside our back door and front door is still covered in sand. So I need to go and get an outdoor broom at some point and brush that stuff away. I would wash it away, but I ended up just clogging all the drains with sand, so it's not really going to help anybody. Anyway, so there we go. So onto some knitting finally. Sorry, I've been rambling for 12 minutes and finally getting onto some knitting. I'll start with my whips, because my FO is my design project, and I want to talk about that separately. So the one I'm currently working on is the only thing on my needles right now. Ooh, sorry, I dropped my pen. Sorry about that. Sorry about the sniffles. The only thing I'm working on at the moment is my Stripes Gone Crazy. And I have a finished sleeve. So the ends are woven in, I just haven't trimmed them yet. I'm not going to trim them until after I've blocked it. I've got one long sleeve, finished with cuff and everything. And I finished the other sleeve, cuff and everything, and all the ends are woven in. Go me. I didn't get to bed till like 2 a.m. last night, but I finished my sleeves. I got so close to finishing the sleeves. I mean, I'd already had this sleeve finished before I came back from Dubai, but I hadn't done the cuff yet because I wasn't 100% sure which colour I was going to use for the cuff. So I put these on waist yarn, and then I'd finished up to this sort of like fuchsia pink stripe in Dubai, and then Saturday I think I did 2 or 3 more stripes on Saturday. I think I only did like 1 or 2 stripes on Saturday. And then yesterday I did all of this. I didn't get that much knitting done yesterday. I didn't actually have that much time to knit yesterday. It was only really in the evening. I was doing a lot of other things during the day, trying to catch up with myself. And then I decided, oh, while I'm here, I may as well just do the cuff and finish the sleeve. So I did that, and I was just like, well, I don't want to just, I kind of want to finish the other sleeve as well and have that be done too. So I took the extra 45 minutes, an hour it took to do the sleeve, and did that one as well. I ended up doing the cuffs in the same colour. I was originally going to do them in different colours, but both were at the stage where this would have been, the pinkish colour was going to be the next colour in the sequence on both, so it made sense to do them the same. And so this was knit This is a pattern by Atelier Alpha on Ravelry, and it's called Stripes Gone Crazy. It's a pattern. And I'm having a moment now where I'm wondering if I should have knit the size down. And I'll come to that in a second. But this is knit on 3.5mm needles for the main body, and now I'm doing the trims, the edges, all the ribbing is done on 3mm needles. I'm doing that on my Knit Pros. I had some people ask me what needles I was using, and the majority of the yarn I'm using for this cardigan is Dubai Knits yarn, which is dyed by my friend Josie. So this is her bridesmaid colour, Wisterious and Smoky Orchid. I believe, yeah, Smoky Orchid. And these are 50% merino, 50% silk. So soft and so lovely to work with. They pill quite a bit, but they're so soft. And the light grey is Drops Baby Alpaca Silk in a 8108 colour. Yeah, so I was trying this on yesterday, and it fits fine around the shoulders. Like, it's a perfect fit on the shoulders and on the back. But the front, at the moment, when I unroll the edges, they pretty much touch perfectly at the front. So my concern is once I add the button band that it's going to be a bit big. But the button band is only 10 rows, so it's only that wide as the hem. So it should be fine, because obviously that's going to overlap with the buttons. And I've got my buttons picked out already. If I can find them, they're on my desk somewhere. I've got these little itty bitty buttons. I don't know if you can see properly. Just these little itty bitty buttons, and they're slightly see-through, so they should be quite subtle. I don't want anything too blurry. This jumper's nice. And I figured actually it's not that bad, because it won't matter that much, because I'm thinking about it, I rarely button up my cardigans anyway. I usually leave them open because I get too hot otherwise. So look at all those ends. All those ends. Wove them all in. Yeah, I wove in the ends as I went along, otherwise I knew I'd have a nightmare at the end and I'd never do it. Just don't trim them until after I've blocked it. So yeah, so that's that. I only have the collar left to pick up and the button bands now, so this should definitely be finished and blocked, I hope, by the next time I podcast. And that's all living in my neon yarn bag made by my friend Marina, who also, thank you for letting me stay with you. She put me up for one night when I was back in Dubai. And so that's being kept in that. And so yeah, that is my only work in progress at the moment. It won't be the only one for very long. I have quite a lot that I'm planning. So up next on the needles are two projects we already spoke about. One is the Persistence is Key, which is the worsted weight cabled cardigan. This one. And that is by Amanda Woga on Ravelry. And this is in the project bag that I made for myself. It's patchwork. And the second one coming up next is the Marco Polo, which is in another project bag that I've made. And that is this one, this cardigan, the stripy cardigan. And this is by Ella Torrente on Ravelry. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the names wrong. And this I'm going to use my Icelandic yarn, my cam yarn, in these three colours. I think they look really nice together. So, another stripy cardigan on the list. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm seeming to like the stripes. Then, next up is this bamboo yarn that I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with. So this is the Bamboo Elise yarn that I picked up from a local shop here in Bahrain last week. well, almost a couple of weeks ago now, and I swatched it. I never usually swatch this much, but because it's a yarn and a fibre content I'd never used before, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, or how much it would stretch. So I swatched it three times on different needles, 4mm, 3.5, and 3mm, and they all come out quite loose. 3mm is obviously not as loose as 4, but still quite loose. So I'm still tossing up between making the featherweight cardigan by Hannah Fettig. I also found another pattern by, is it Joji or Hofi Locatelli? I'm never quite sure. Her boxy but buttony sort of sweater. It's just like a very boxy sort of pullover. The sleeves are tighter, more fitted, but the actual pullover is quite flowy. So I figure at least then if I knit a smaller size and it stretches out, then it won't look weird. I don't know. Or I could take the safe route and do a shawl, something like the Hitchhiker, because I do actually get gauge for Hitchhiker on 3mm needles, and that's knit on 3mm needles. So I'm thinking I might knit a shawl with it first. I do really want a garment out of bamboo because that would be perfect for this weather over here for the summer. Be really useful. I'm just a bit concerned about how much it will stretch, and I'm a bit unsure about whether or not I want to invest all that time and effort into making a cardigan with 3mm needles or 3.5mm needles, only to not like the end result. So yeah, I don't know, what do you guys think? What should I do with this? Should I try a cardigan? Should I try the featherweight and just knit a smaller size and see, hope for the best? Or should I just go the safe route and make a shawl? Let me know what you think in the comments in the Rav group. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. And if you've ever worked with bamboo yarn, sorry, I had fluff on my lips. If you've ever worked with bamboo yarn, let me know what you thought of it, how you found it, and what you knit with it, because I'd be interested to see. I did the Ravelry search for patterns with bamboo yarn. Not a lot came up that I found actually the designer used bamboo yarn. A lot of them, it seems that other people have substituted bamboo yarn in, and that's fine. And I have checked with the featherweight as well, and people have knit cardigans with that out of bamboo yarn, or yarn with bamboo in it. So I'm still a little bit unsure though. Hoping I'll be able to make a decision on that one soon, because I would really like to start something with that so I have it for the summer. I'll see. And the last thing that's up and coming, and this one will be cast on this week, is this stuff. This beautiful skein of purple yarn with hints of fluorescent yellow and pink. This was a gift from Josie. This was my going away present, so thank you very much. She showed me a picture of a whole bunch of yarn that she'd skeined up to make socks, and she had like one of those little plastic tubs filled with the caked up balls of yarn, and it was like layers deep, and I could only see the top layer, but this is the one that stuck out, and I was like, oh, pretty. It was only from a picture, and I kind of went a little bit like, oh, I want that, kind of crazy over it. And but yeah, and then she gifted it to me next time I saw her before I left, so that was very sweet. Thank you. And this is yarn by Everything Old. Now, I've been online to try and find it, but her online store doesn't seem to exist anymore. But this is her signature sock fingering weight, 80% merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards and 100 grams. And this is the Rebel Girl colourway, which I quite like. So I'm knitting these up as socks. Probably going to do plain vanilla socks with Fish Lips Kiss Heel. And this is going to be entered into the 12 and 2015 socks knit along that the Caffeinated Knitting podcast are hosting. And also they are doing the Neon April knit along. I think that counts as neon. I've already checked, they said that it does, so I'm looking forward to getting those on the needle and see how those knit up. So that should be fun. Yeah, and that's it for up and coming and sort of what I'm plotting. I'm hoping once I get this cardigan off the needles, I'll get another cardigan started. If I decide not to do the bamboo yarn as a cardigan, I'll probably cast on the Marco Polo. Maybe persistence is key, I'm not sure. I'm so indecisive right now. I'm kind of in that frame of mind. It's probably why I only have one thing on the needle right now, because I can't decide what to start next. Anyway, so on to design projects and finished objects, because they're kind of together this week. First off, this hat, which I showed you last couple of weeks ago now, I think. This hat is my beanie or slouch hat with question mark. I couldn't come up with a better name, I'm sorry. I kind of just cast on and knit really, and didn't really think much of it. I was aiming for a slouch hat originally, but it was after I finished it and I tried it on and then happened to fold up the brim for some reason and realised it makes a perfect beanie as well. It fits perfectly as a beanie. So I'd kind of just taken notes and had the pattern written down for myself, and I hadn't really thought about putting it out there, but a couple of people had asked me for the pattern, so I've just written it up as a free pattern. It should be, by the time you see this, it should be up on Ravelry, and it is called literally beanie or slouch with a question mark. Beanie or slouch hat, question mark. So yeah, go ahead, download it, make the hat, enjoy, and I'd like to see what you guys come up with. So if you do make a hat using that pattern, please feel free to share it with me on Instagram or on Ravelry. You can hashtag it beanie or slouch or something like that, and it'll be fun to see what you guys come up with. Yeah, I quite like it. So that's that first one. Second is this one that I'm wearing around my neck. Now, I've called this one Delayed Departures only because I knit the majority of this at the airport waiting to come back from Dubai last week, and the name just kind of stuck. It was just like, okay, well, that is all this cowl is ever going to remind me of, is being stuck at the airport. So as much as I love it, it's a simple sort of diamondy pattern. Let me take it off so you can see. It's a large cowl, it's a double loop. And here we go, if I show you one layer, I think you'll see the pattern better. Hopefully you can see that. There you go. It's like a double eyelet thing that creates these diamond shapes. It's a simple lace pattern, and it stacks on itself quite nicely to the point where it's quite easy to see where you're going after a while. And it is both charted and written out, the lace. I knit this with cotton DK yarn, which is I use the Rico Essentials Cotton DK. Took 2 balls of this, about 100 grams, and I have a little bit left over. Yeah, and I knit this on large 5mm needles to get a nice sort of airy summer cowl, which is perfect for over here really. To be honest, you just want to add a pop of colour to something, and you can wear this as a single loop or as a double loop around your neck. It just adds a nice pop of colour to whatever you're wearing, whatever your outfit is. And yeah, so I've got the pattern all written up, it's all ready to go. I'm going to knit it one more time in a smaller loop to see how that works as well, and just to double check the pattern is fine. So if anyone is interested in test knitting this cowl, send me a private message on Ravelry, and I'll get in touch to have you guys have a couple of you test knit it as well if you're up for that. I want to get this pattern released in a couple of weeks, hopefully. So we'll see. So yeah, it's quite. I'm not too concerned. I'm pretty sure the instructions are okay. It's kind of why I want to knit it again myself as another test in a different size, just to make sure. But I'm pretty sure they're fine. But yeah, if anyone's interested in test knitting it, as I said, just send me a private message. I'd be happy to send it through to you and for you to give it a go. So yeah, that's not my next design project. That'll be out soon. So that's that. I'm not going to put it back on because it's quite warm in here, and I've turned the AC off because it's quite loud. So yeah, as for other design projects, I have a couple of other ideas roaming around my head, including sorry, I thought one of the cats was coming in, including a shawl. I actually have a couple of shawl designs in my head and I can't quite figure out. I kind of have so many different ideas that I'm wanting to throw into the same shawl, and I'm like, no, I'm just overcomplicating the situation, so I need to take another look at that. And I have a couple of hat ideas as well, both for a Fair Isle hat and otherwise. So we'll see what comes of that soon. Going on to some podcasts I've been enjoying this week. One that I really enjoyed was Little Bobbin's latest episode with her mum, which was so sweet. I thought that was the cutest thing. So she did a podcast with her mum, and sorry, 1 second. Sorry, I thought I heard some cats fighting and I wasn't sure if it was outside or up my voice. Sorry, so yeah, Little Bobbins had her mum on the podcast, and that was so sweet. And her mum does some incredible hand quilting, like proper really detailed English paper piecing, hand sewn, hand quilted. It was incredible. Like, some of those quilts were just so amazing. I'd quite like to get into quilting. It's one of the main reasons I started sewing again, and one of the reasons why I've been practicing on patchwork bags. But I need to set aside some time properly to be able to work on it. But yeah, like, it was so sweet, and the dynamic on camera was so adorable, and they were like, it was just really fun to watch them together, and it was just very inspiring. The other podcast I've really been enjoying is Dark Matter Knits with Elizabeth Green Musselman. She's based in Texas, I believe, but I really love her podcast. Her stories are great. The way she talks is great. I just love listening to her. And she does like a technique section at the end of each episode, and some of the things that she's talked about have been really useful for me as well. I mean, a lot of them I knew already, but some of them she had a different spin on the technique, or she had a little bit of advice on how to do the technique better, which is always useful to hear. And on her latest episode, she'd acquired a sizable stack of old school 80s and 70s knitting magazines with some pretty amazingly horrendous knitting patterns in them. That made me laugh. I loved watching her talk about them. And that actually reminded me that I've inherited a few old school patterns myself. And the first envelope of stuff, I'm not sure if this is actually when they are from, because they're all basically magazine clippings, so they don't have dates on them. But the envelope that my auntie kept it in, because these came from my aunt in London, that is postmarked 1979. I don't know if you can see that. They're quite old. I mean, look at this. How appropriate is that? Fair Isle berets. How cute are these? I mean, I'm not a beret fan myself, but I'd love to give one of these a try. And it's great because the abbreviations they use and stuff are so different to what we have now, and the way the patterns are written up. There's no charts, it's all written. This was, I thought Elizabeth would find this funny. Yeah, that jumper would be a real icebreaker, don't you think? As the title suggests. This little cat on a roof with the moon in the night sky. How ridiculous. There's this sort of pamphlet about cushion craft. It's a mixture of knitting and crochet. Patterns in here for different cushions, which I thought was quite funny. And there's patterns are all on the inside as well. I just wish I knew what year this was from. There's a few other ones in here as well. Some of these actually aren't terrible with some modifications. Like, I actually quite like the stitch pattern, the lace pattern in this. Oops, sorry, there we go. I don't like the shape of the top, but I think that lace pattern is quite nice. Would look nice on something a little bit more modern, maybe. That's so cute, look tea cozy. So yeah, and my aunt used to knit. My aunt in London used to knit. I don't remember her ever knitting, so it must have been before I was old enough to remember. But so I'm looking forward to going back and seeing what other goodies she might have. And my mum sent me some stuff as well. She never knit. My mum was never a knitter. She said she could never quite get hold of it, but my mum did macrame. And I actually have a photo which, if I can't insert into the video clip here, I'll definitely put that in the show notes. So she would do macrame for like pot holders for like flowers and stuff, and so she sent me a whole bunch of like macrame sort of craft books from, I guess, the 80s, because that's when she was in London. That's when she first came to London anyway, the late 70s, early 80s. And things like macrame in the home, macrame plant hangers. I always remember we always had a couple of macrame plant hangers. And that's the photo I've got, is one of my mum next to her, next to a plant hanger she made. And then this was in the mix, which I thought was really sweet. It's my mum's handwritten instructions on how to make things out of macrame. So this first one is for this canopy basket, which I think is really cute. And then I think this is one for a fluffy an owl. She's drawn that on the back, and the list of materials includes fluffy feathers. So I think I think that was for a little owl. But yeah, so that was my little pile of nostalgia here. I'm quite a sentimental person, so these sorts of things really appeal to me, and my and stuff like that. I think it's quite sweet. I'm looking forward to going back home and seeing what else I can find. So, in other news, coming up towards the end now, in other news, I was contacted this last week by a viewer who asked if I sell project bags that I make. I haven't done that yet, but I have been thinking about it, and she was interested in one of my patchwork project bags, specifically this size, which is large enough for a large shawl project. I've got enough yarn in here for a cardigan, for a medium-sized cardigan, so it's a pretty decent sized bag. So yeah, so I've been chatting with her a little bit over the last week, and so she's interested in purchasing one of these. So I'm going to be I'm going to be sewing up a project bag for her. And then I was thinking, I don't know if anyone else would be interested in a project bag. either patchwork or just regular ones, or some that aren't quite patchwork like this but are a mix of fabrics. So I don't know, I'm thinking of maybe sewing up a few I guess samples, or some test ones, and sticking them in an Etsy shop, see if anyone's interested. But yeah, I do enjoy making project bags, so if you guys are interested in purchasing a project bag, please let me know, because if I see that there's actually some interest in it, then I will definitely put some more thought into that. So yeah, that's a little bit of sort of extra news, as it were. So yeah, I'm going to get working on that. I'm going to hopefully have her bag sorted soon, and then I'll work on getting a few other bags sewed up. Keep wanting to say knit, sewed up and put up into an Etsy shop in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. That should be exciting. And yeah, so I also I had quite a few people asking questions this on the Rav group this last week, so I wanted to take some time to answer some of those. Josie asked she wanted to see Hugo and Derek, and whilst they were around earlier, I had hoped they were going to stay in here long enough for me to be able to pick them up, or at least come close enough for me to pick them up. I've got a bag of their treats here, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to entice them in here. No. Okay, I'm going to put a few treats out, and hopefully they'll come while I'm talking, and then then I can show you them. I'm sorry about this. One sec. Ooh. Okay. I think they've gone upstairs to sleep. Can't see them. Anyway, just moving on. I'll try and show them again next week if they don't toddle in before I finish. She also wanted me to explain a bit more and show maybe the lighting setup that I use when I'm photographing my knitting. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen last week I posted a picture of my lighting setup. So like I said before, I'm quite into photography, and so I have some pretty basic studio lights, but they do the job. And we have an empty spare room upstairs that doesn't even have a bed in it yet, so I'm using that as my photography room, as it were. So I have my lights set up in there permanently and my tripod and everything, so I use that space to photograph my knitting. And she was asking what settings I use and if I could show how I do that. So I am planning on doing that. I'm probably going to have to wait to film at the weekend when Perry's around, because I'll probably need his help to hold the camera and to film while I actually do the photos, so you can see how I do it. But I am planning on doing that hopefully before the end of this month. The next couple of weekends are going to be a bit busy, but we'll see. If I can, I'll try and do it this weekend, otherwise it'll be 3 weekends from now, just because the weekend after we've got a visitor. Someone else, Marissa, who's QTT Knit Crochet on Ravelry, she asked me what my favourite needles were and if I have a preference for working with wooden needles or metal needles. I don't really think I have a preference. I like both. I have both. I have all types of needles, actually. I have wooden, I have metal, I have acrylic even, and they all have their uses. Like I have an interchangeable set of wooden needles from Knit Pro, which are the rainbow coloured ones. These ones, which I really love, and they were my first proper set of needles. But I also have a metal set of needles, which I think I showed a couple of weeks ago, which I made the case for, that I don't have them to hand right now. And I also really love knitting with those. I don't like their cables so much, but the actual needles are really nice to work with. And they're nice and pointy and perfect for like lace and stuff like that. And I also got a lot of questions about what life is like in Bahrain. whether we find it different to the UK, how is it different, is it different to Dubai, what are the differences, what are the similarities, how have we found it, what we get up to, how cold does it get, all those sorts of questions. So I'm planning on hopefully trying to talk a little bit more about our life here in each episode. So as for what life is like, it's pretty laid back. I quite like it. I mean, we live in quite a suburban area in Bahrain. It's all residential around here. Whereas in Dubai, we lived in, well, it was still a residential area, but it was a very sort of active, it was all apartments. We were right by the beach. We lived in Dubai Marina when we were in Dubai. We were 2-minute walk from the beach. We had everything was on our doorstep that we needed. We had a mall within walking distance. We had supermarkets within walking. Pretty much everything was within. Anything that you really needed was within walking distance. Obviously, if you want to go to other areas, you'd have to take the car or a metro or a taxi. But so in that respect, over here, we're a little bit further away from stuff. But to be honest, Bahrain is so small. It is so small. We chose the area we live in because Perry drives to Saudi Arabia every day for work. So we wanted to live as close to the causeway as possible, and this is literally as close as you could probably get, while still being a nice area to live. It takes him less than 10 minutes to get to the causeway in the mornings, and then it's straight over the long. I think it's basically just a very long bridge between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, and so he does that every day. But even from where we are, which is almost on the complete western coast of Bahrain, driving all the way to the easternmost point on the coast, so just going straight across the northern part of Bahrain, half an hour, if that. Tiny island, I tell you. It's longer going south, like the distance is further south than it is going across width-wise, but the majority of the population, majority of, I guess, the developed and established city or cities of Bahrain are all in this northern part of the country. So yeah, it really doesn't take long to get anywhere. So even though we live in a very residential area, it doesn't really matter because we're only 5 minutes from a mall. And so yeah, it is different than Dubai in that respect. There's less things that we could just walk to. We definitely need 2 cars here because taxis are quite expensive compared to Dubai. And there's no real public transport system. I mean, there are buses, but they're not that great. As for, someone asked if it gets cold here. When we first moved here, it was pretty darn cold. To the point where I was digging out hoodies and my knitwear and stuff to keep warm in the house because it got quite cold at night. It's warming up now. It's not as hot as Dubai is yet, but it will get there. It's an island nation, and in the summer it gets hot and it gets very humid here, apparently. I've not been here during the summer, but I imagine it's very similar to Dubai, and that's pretty hot and humid and sticky and horrible. As for what I knit for this climate, well, to be honest, a lot of what I knit isn't necessarily for wearing here. But the things I do wear here are cardigans and scarves a lot, and cowls, mostly at the malls when they crank up the AC, so it's like Arctic weather in there, or at the cinema, where again, the AC makes it really cold. So the majority of what I knit will either end up being presents, or I wait until we go on a cold weather holiday and have a chance to wear it. Last December, Perry and I went to Iceland, which was the first time I really had an opportunity to wear a lot of my knitting. We went to South Africa last summer as well, and it was their winter when we were there. It still wasn't that cold, but it was colder. And so I got to take a lot of my knitting. I didn't take too much knitting actually when we went to South Africa because we were trying to travel light. So we took small suitcases. But yeah, so I really only get a chance to wear my knitting properly, I guess, when we travel. So yeah, but I'm trying to think of more sort of lightweight, weather appropriate things to knit for over here, because I would like to get more use out of them. That's kind of why I really want to make a cardigan out of this bamboo yarn, but I'm still a bit worried about how that will turn out. So like I said, if anyone has any advice on this stuff, let me know. I'm curious. I think that's all I'll answer for now, because I've sort of rambled on for quite a bit. I had a lot of questions from new knitters, people who've been knitting for a long time, people asking me, usually asking me about how I got started, how I learned to knit the way I do, my knitting style, like how I hold my needles, how I hold my yarn. A lot of people have been really complimentary and asking me how I got so good. I mean, I still don't think of myself as being that great, but honestly, it's just practice. I kind of became a bit obsessive about it, and I was like, knit all the things all the time, kind of level obsessive. So I guess that kind of helped. But yeah, so what I'm planning on doing for that is I'm probably going to do a separate episode just about my firsts, I guess. My firsts in knitting, my firsts, first lace project, first like cable project and blah, 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 first sweater and jumper and cardigan and stuff like that. And maybe sort of explain a bit about my learning process and what I've learned and how the stages I went through and how I learnt different things, I guess. And what I'm planning on doing is I'll probably pre-record that episode before I go to London and have it uploaded and everything ready to go. And then while I'm in London, I can publish that so you guys can have an episode whilst I'm away in case I can't film. Because I don't know how busy I'm going to be. I imagine I'm not going to have as much time to sit and plan a podcast episode and record and then edit and upload and stuff while I'm back home. If I do, it'll be a very short episode. So I think if I can do something like this as like a special episode, I guess, then I will. So with that, and my voice seems to be going, so I need to get a drink or something, I'm gonna bid you farewell. Thank you for joining me today. As I said, you can find me on Ravelry as Mina86. Join our Ravelry group, Knitting Expat Podcast. Please come along, join the group, join in the conversation. It's been great so far getting to chat with you, all of you who have joined. I have to say I love getting the emails every day saying like new subscribers on YouTube and checking the Ravelry group every day and seeing all the new people who've joined. It's great, and I'm really loving the sort of small community we're building up, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, and if you're interested in test knitting my cowl, feel free to let me know. The pattern is actually very, very adaptable. You can knit this pretty much with any weight yarn, with any size needles, in any gauge, and still get a wearable cowl. I mean, I decided to knit this in cotton, so it'd be appropriate for the summer, but you can easily knit this in wool with a tighter gauge and have it be more of a winter cowl. So I mean, it's not a requirement for you to have to knit it in cotton, is what I'm getting at. So yeah, get in touch, let me know if you're interested, and just in general, leave me a comment, send me a message. I love to hear from you guys, so it brightens up my day every time I get a message from one of you. So yeah, happy knitting, and I'll see you next week. Bye.